Today, we're gonna do a mini review on the XF56mm 1.2 RWR lens. Fujifilm was awesome enough to send me this lens along with the X-H2 for a couple weeks, and I wanna share with you the results I got. And jumping into the specs, this is an 84mm equivalent. The aperture is a f1.2 to 16. Its filter thread size is 67mm. It weighs in at 15.7 ounces or 445 grams. Its minimum focal distance is about 20 inches or 50 centimeters, and the MSRP is $1,000. And just to talk about the build for a minute, this lens feels extremely premium, just like most Fujifilm lenses. And just as the title indicates, it is weather resistant, so it has all the seals needed to protect you in the elements. And this is a welcomed upgrade coming from the Gen 1, which did not have that. And just like the other Gen 2 newly released 1.4 lenses, this 56mm 1.2 is larger than the original, both taller and heavier. Not by a large amount, but important to note. And taking a quick real-world measurement with both lens caps on, this lens weighs in at 478 grams. Overall, I'd consider this a pretty light lens and one of Fuji's smaller primes. For example, you have the XF 80mm macro lens, and that weighs in at 750 grams, much larger. And I won't even compare it to the GFX lenses, it's not too bad. So now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the autofocus. As I'm sure you've heard by now, this lens does not have the fastest autofocus. This lens does not feature a linear motor, which if it did, it would have LM in the title. What's weird is that the newer 1.4 Gen 2 lenses all feature a linear motor, and this is the only one that does not. And I can't speak for all of the other lenses, but the 18mm 1.4 has just hyper fast autofocus, and it does have a linear motor. I'm not a lens scientist, so I can't really speak to why Fujifilm chose to skip a linear motor in this lens, but it is kind of unfortunate because the autofocus isn't that great. On the GFX side, we have the GF1 10mm lens. It's also a pretty much 85 equivalent, and that does have a linear motor. I know they're two completely different beasts, but I feel like Fuji could have put one in this lens. So for my time with this lens, I've used it the most in street photography, and the autofocus was especially apparent when I'm trying to photograph a really fast moving subject or set it to burst mode and burst a fast moving subject. Both of these scenarios would usually yield a blurry shot. And I'm really talking no shots in focus. Or the background would have the focus and the subject would not. But enough of the negativity. I think where this lens would absolutely shine would be portraits or shooting something slow moving. You set your camera to eye focus and you shouldn't really have a problem if you have a stationary object or a person moving kind of slow. But if you want to shoot F1 cars or dogs sprinting, I would probably go with a different lens. And for one more autofocus test, let's test out the video AF. Just to set the scene, I have my phone pointed at the screen of the X-H2 with the 56mm on it. I was using the XF 8 to 16 to record this video, and I switched it to the 56. I would use an external monitor, but I haven't made enough YouTube dollars yet, so if you could just hit that subscribe button, I'll up the quality for you guys. So this is what we're looking like for the eye focus. Naturally, this is set to auto eye focus. And honestly, this isn't that bad. I put my hands up, still good. I think a lot of the complaints that you see across YouTube and the internet about this lens are strictly about fast moving subjects. I'm not moving too fast right now. Even that's not too bad. I'm pretty impressed, but this looks pretty good. Also, the background looks amazing. Okay, so now we are at F2. I'm not sure if it's moving snappy or not. It looks about the same. Let's take off the glasses. Not too bad. And the minimum focal distance is pretty reasonable at 20 inches or 50 centimeters, pretty good. F2 definitely seems a little bit snappier, I think. And now we're at F4. Naturally, the background is not as nice, but we're also splitting hairs here. Looks fine. Naturally, with this lens having an aperture of f1.2, it is a low light beast. I really love night photography. Typically, I am a tripod shooter doing HDR or long exposure shots. I don't mind doing run and gun street photography with large aperture lenses, and this lens is a perfect example. The only lens with a larger aperture than this 56mm is the XF 50mm 1.0. So if you are looking for a night lens to run and gun with, this is really a perfect lens. And to lightly touch on a really obvious one with this lens, the bokeh. This lens has some seriously awesome bokeh, just as you would expect from a 1.2. But just to be honest, and a bit of a tangent, I got my XH1 back in 2018, and one lens that I skipped on was the original XF56mm 1.2. I just didn't think I would like the field of view, which is ironic because later I got the GFX and the GF110, which is the same thing. But on the XF system, I love the 5140 at 140mm or 200mm equivalent, even though it's a 2.8. The bokeh is just amazing, but this lens takes it to a completely different level. It's really, really nice. And I'm almost kind of kicking myself for not getting this lens sooner. I feel like I would have really appreciated the bokeh. And here are some additional images that I took with this lens and the XH2 that really make the bokeh shine. So let's do a bit of a bokeh experiment. So naturally, what you just looked at was cycling through all the different apertures of this lens, starting with f1.2 and ending on f16. But yeah, if we compare it, the f1.2 to f4, you can see there's a huge difference. This photo on the left, the lens is the focus. Obviously, some of the keyboard shines, but for the most part, your eyes are drawn to the lens. And on this side, the photo is just much more busy. The lens is obviously front and center, but the keyboard strongly conflicts with the visual hierarchy. And of course, then you see the hard drive in the background. It's not really as pleasing of an image. That's why people pay the big money for the larger aperture lenses. I think it's a bit more apparent in the second example. Obviously, you have f1.2 on the left and f4.0 on the right. The background is just insanely smooth on the f1.2. And if we zoom in on the lens, we could see it's hyper sharp. And it's actually kind of hard to nail the focus. You could see the focus was just at the F. I think we're at 200%. So pushing it a little bit, zoomed out it looks fine. You have this really extreme depth of field on the front of the lens. So you really just have the PF and the 1.4 in focus. And obviously on the F4, a lot more of the letters are in focus. The front edge is not as extreme of a fall off, but the background is just much more pleasing to look at on the 1.2, at least in my opinion. It's a bit harder to recognize what you're looking at, obviously. You would have no idea what was in the background. You could assume plants because it's green, but also it really blends in with the blue sky so much that you probably couldn't even tell. Whereas on the F4, there's definitely a decent amount of separation. The background does conflict with the lens a little bit. If you wanted to take an image like this and you wanted the lens to shine with no background conflicting, you could also focus stack this and that would be pretty cool as well. And I wouldn't recommend shooting at the largest aperture of your lens as you're going to hit diffraction. As you can see here, the letters are a bit blurry because you're really reaching a diminishing returns when you're shooting at an aperture this high. Such a crazy difference to see. You can obviously tell the entire image what the background is and the foreground and all of that with the highest level of aperture. Even if it was at f8, you would have way more information to depict, but just showing you the extremes. And now take a look at a few more images that I took with this lens. So what's the verdict on this lens? Well, if you are absolutely a big fan of the 85mm equivalent focal length, you're absolutely gonna wanna pick this up. It's sharp, it's got great bokeh, it's amazing in low light. Just if you wanna shoot really fast objects, this is not the lens for you. So hit that subscribe button to see more videos on XF and GFX gear, and check out one of these videos next. If you found this video helpful, there's some affiliate links below, as well as a link to buy me a coffee, or you could just hit that thumbs up button. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next video.